What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, I actually thought about doing something a little fun here, considering that Spider-Man No Way Home has come out, and it's been out for about roughly 2 weeks or so, depending on where you live. I thought, let's talk about the Spider-Man No Way Home ending, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, it's total spoilers for this movie. So if you have not seen Spider-Man No Way Home yet, I would advise to hit the watch later button on this video, come back to it later after you've seen it, because I am going to spoil the ending of this movie by what we're going to be talking about. So now that we're about to talk about it, I'm going to explain how Charles Soule's Daredevil predicted the ending of Spider-Man No Way Home, and how Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil answers the burning question of why no one remembers that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, despite the fact that there is both written, photo, and video evidence. But before we do that, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I post multiple videos throughout the week, plus live stream the Blerd Cave every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, so hit that bell button, that way you don't miss anything. Also, if you enjoyed the video, Hulk smash that like button, because it helps the channel out. That said, let's talk about the ending of Spider-Man No Way Home.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie, and make it look easy.
So to talk about this, the whole premise of this movie is that Spider-Man's secret identity of Peter Parker had been outed by Mysterio at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, and by the time you get to Spider-Man No Way Home, everyone knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and he tries to use magic by way of Doctor Strange to, for all intents and purposes, put the genie back into the bottle and have his secret identity stripped away from other people's memories. And of course, because of how he keeps interrupting the spell by adding caveats to it, anyone in the multiverse who knows Spider-Man's secret identity comes to Peter Parker's universe, and most of them are trying to kill him. Now, this leads to all sorts of crazy shenanigans. This is how you wind up with characters like Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and Sandman from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, as well as Electro and the Lizard from the Amazing Spider-Man movies, end up trying to take down Peter Parker, and we ultimately wind up learning that the other Spider-Men, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, those versions of Spider-Man, show up to help Tom Holland's Peter Parker out. And in the end of it all, Peter Parker asks Doctor Strange to do the spell again and once again wipe everybody's memory that Peter Parker is Spider-Man from existence, including the people who he loves. So basically everybody in existence, they no longer know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. That means MJ, that means Ned, that means Happy Hogan, and even Doctor Strange himself. Nobody knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. We have seen this done before, and I know people are gonna, say, oh, well, what about Spider-Man One More Day? Yes, we have seen it there. However, Charles Soule's Daredevil did it in what I think was a more interesting way. And not just in a more interesting way than what One More Day did, but in a way that is eerily similar to what happened in No Way Home, albeit without using magic. And it's something we've been talking about a lot lately in regards to Zebediah Killgrave's Purple Children. Now, for those who don't know who the Purple Children are, the Purple Children are, as they are implied, the children of the Purple Man, Zebediah Killgrave, a man who has the ability to unleash special pheromones from his body that can basically make people do whatever he wants them to do. These pheromones have to be either inhaled or absorbed through the skin, so close contact is required. Those of you who have ever watched Jessica Jones Season 1 on Netflix, you're probably intimately familiar with how Zebediah Killgrave's power works. It's the same thing. If he tells you to do something, you are compelled to do it. So if he says walk off a cliff, you will walk off a cliff. If he tells you to give him all your money, you will do exactly that, and you'll be happy to do so. The Purple Children work in about roughly the same way, only their power seems to erode when they're not around one another. And during Charles Soule's run on Daredevil, specifically in the pages of Daredevil number 20 in 2015, Killgrave was planning to use the Purple Children to amplify his power, spreading his message through a television station so that he could control the entire world. However, the Purple Children had turned on Zebediah Kilgrave, and realizing that Daredevil wasn't their enemy, that he was actually trying to help them, they decided to do something nice for Daredevil, considering that Daredevil's identity had been leaked once again, though this time it wasn't because of Civil War, but it was in fact due to Daredevil himself outing his own secret identity. This was all during Mark Waid's run on Daredevil, though this time this was intentionally done as Matt Murdock disclosed his identity in a court of law. This was a calculated tactic, but ultimately it wound up backfiring on Matt Murdock, and the Purple Children decided to make the entire world forget that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, in much the same way that Doctor Strange made the entire world forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. This even included some of Daredevil's closest confidants, like Foggy Nelson and even the woman he was dating at the time, Kirsten McDuffie. Only in this particular instance, Daredevil didn't ask the Purple Children to do this, they just did this for him. So it came as a shock to Matt Murdock that no one knew who he was when he was Daredevil, because both Foggy Nelson and Kirsten knew his secret. Now, since this is so similar to what happened in No Way Home, I think it's safe to say that a lot of the people's burning questions about how are people who took video of Peter Parker being Spider-Man, how are people who wrote about Peter Parker being Spider-Man, how are they going to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man if all they have to do is look at a sheet of paper or look at a previously recorded video? I think Chip Zdarsky's current run on Daredevil can also give us some insight into Spider-Man No Way Home's ending and Spider-Man's future in the MCU. Currently in Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil as well as Devil's Reign, Kingpin had a file on Daredevil that had all the information on Matt Murdock being Daredevil, but due to what the Purple Children did, wiping everyone's memory, it didn't just apply to everyone's minds, it also applied to anything that was written down or anything that was recorded. As Matt Murdock told us, that if someone were to look at a piece of paper or a picture or a video of Matt Murdock being outed as Daredevil, they would probably see something entirely different, or maybe nothing at all. And we learned that the latter was true in the case for Kingpin, because when he looked at the file and the pictures of Matt Murdock being Daredevil and all the information being laid before him, all he had before him were blank pages. I think this will be the case with Spider-Man in the MCU going forward. I think that when people see pictures of Peter Parker, anything that was recorded, any old news broadcastings where Peter Parker at the beginning of No Way Home was being outed as Spider-Man, or as we saw at the end of Far From Home where J. Jonah Jameson had outed him, all those pictures and video and written word will say something or show something completely different, or nothing at all, or may just not even exist entirely. As we know at the end of No Way Home, even J. Jonah Jameson, who was the one who outed Peter Parker after using the video that Mysterio had sent to him, even he doesn't remember that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, not even using any of the old footage to be like, oh, hey, this was a thing. Now, they don't answer these questions in the movie, but the writers have recently come out and said that they did actually address this in the original script, and that they decided that rather than taking away from the emotional impact of the ending, they chose instead to address it at a later date. And I think that considering how close these situations are between the movie of Spider-Man No Way Home and Charles Soule's Daredevil and Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil by proxy, I think we already have the answer, and I think it's going to be what we just talked about. I think in future MCU films, future Spider-Man movies, people who have what I just said, those recorded videos, pictures, documents, all of that stuff will pretty much either be blank or show completely different information. And this is made even more interesting to me when you consider the fact that with Spider-Man No Way Home borrowing so heavily from both Charles Soule and Chip Zdarsky's stories in the Daredevil comics, it's even crazier to think about when you realize that Daredevil makes a cameo appearance in this movie. But anyways, those are my musings about Spider-Man No Way Home and Spider-Man's future in the MCU going forward. Let me know what you think. Do you think I'm onto something, or do you have a different theory? Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.